its own self first, by itself, by its own people, which will be lasting. But no sooner had one episode ends, there is another one waiting in the wing. And we thought the Shias may be the only scapegoat or the victims of hate and terror campaign. But Sheikh, it isn't just that. It was so sad to read, to watch on the screen and see it documented on the television, the brutality with which a very small minority of the population of Christians in the city of Lahore found that they were, for a change, a target. And it is said more than 100 or 200, whatever the figure is, they know better. Their houses, their properties, their businesses were burnt to ashes, to ground. People were injured, and it showed what value of life and people's belongings and property the community which hails itself to be the follower of the great prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, could exert on other people a punishment unwanted, unwarranted, unethical, illegal, immoral, in such a manner that a population of 1% or so of Christians in Pakistan had to cry out for help to the world rather than to their own, the leaders, the politicians, the security forces who were supposed to protect and save them. Is it such a sad affair that a thing like this is now being commented upon, not just locally in Pakistan, but globally, right across different continents of this world?
Yes, it's a dreadful event. It's a dreadful event for not just Christians, it's a dreadful event for Muslims and for everyone in the world. Whether we agree or not with the terms of the heresy laws in the Pakistan civil and criminal codes, that doesn't excuse this sort of vigilante behaviour, this wild destruction. It's not something that's in any way permissible or condoned in Islam. I think it has brought home to many people in the world the seriousness of the situation in Pakistan for all Pakistanis. And these horrendous sights, horrendous not just for the violence, but for the disregard, the total lack of respect for other human beings. It goes beyond just losing temper, being carried away. And I think it's a symptom of the terrible fear that exists in Pakistan. Fear of foreigners, fear of neighbours, fear of everybody. And at the first opportunity, people are exploding into acts of violence. It's one of the most serious incidents that we've seen in terms of Pakistan.
Brother, if you just have a look,
yes.
Brothers and sisters watching this program, have a look on the screen. This is some of the photographs being shown on the screen of how looting, arson, burning of houses, individual and communal properties of belonging to the Christian minority of Pakistan took place. These houses, these properties, these were the living dwellings of people. Burning of cots and beds and houses and properties taking place, and I gather the police and the security forces did arrive, but they looked on. They looked on as if they were watching a tamasha, as if they were watching a show, and as bystanders they stood there doing absolutely nothing to protect the property. It is so sad that on television screen we have to show these photos of tragic events taking place once again, nowhere else, but again and again and again in a country called Pakistan. A country which boasts itself to be a leading nation of the Islamic world. If this is the Islamic world they would like to portray to the rest of the world, then how will the Prophet of ours, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who preached not violence but peace, would be holding his head after seeing his followers in such a war path against innocent, unarmed civilians, women, children, old and young, in a country which calls itself a land of religion of Islam. Brother, there is an organization called the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, a well-known organization. It is canvassing at the United Nations that religious persecution and intolerance should be made unlawful through the United Nations as a part of the charter there. Isn't that a bit of speech, tongue-in-cheek, for people of Islamic faith to be calling at the gates of the United Nations to put a charter through like this?
It could be seen that way, certainly. If we consider the situation of many Muslims in the United Kingdom or other European Western countries, they came here as immigrants, they remain a minority. The actual, I think you have the figures for Christians in Pakistan, is a very similar percentage to the number of Muslims in the United Kingdom. And here, if a sister has her headscarf pulled off on a bus, we see it in the newspapers, not just Muslim newspapers, in the press, the media, saying, what are the police doing about an outbreak of racial or religious violence in such and such an area? I was sitting on a train once and an Eastern European said something racist, and a white man stood up and told him to shut up, that you can't say things like that in England, you can be arrested for it. And he was applauded by all the passengers on the train. Where's the protest and where's the redress for this from the Muslim community in England, in America? We're being very quiet again. And yet as soon as we want a prayer room in a shopping precinct, or we think we should have a longer dinner break on a Friday to get to Jummah prayers, it's, oh, this country's oppressing us. We need to sort out our own attitudes to other faiths. We don't have a free ticket to Islamic benefits. We have to earn our benefits. It's set out in the Quran, and as you rightly said, in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's no doubt about this. So we have to say, what is Pakistan going to do? But we also have to say, what are we going to do? On religious freedom, as you know, I'm a member of the International Association of Religious Freedom. I got a message, I think it was yesterday morning, from a Christian minister in that organisation, a Christian minister belonging to a minority church, I might add. And he said, I've received this message from a Shinto priest in Japan who had been contacted by a Christian minister in Pakistan saying, all the houses of my congregation have been burned. I have X number 100 people homeless. They've got no clothes, they've got no food. Can you help me? Because who would be seen helping Christians in Pakistan when someone like a regional governor is assassinated just for saying a Christian should get a fair trial? They're not only being having their homes destroyed, they're being left in a situation where there's almost no one ready to say, come and stay at my house. This is a dreadful stain.
A dreadful stain, not on the face, but I would say on the hearts of the government and the people of Pakistan, who purposely, knowingly, willingly go after innocent people of a minority community. And yet, when we see the mullahs from the members in the mosques, the politicians from the east to the Western world and society and country to the Christian world, trying to teach them gospel and preach them about tolerance and respect of minority religions and faiths. This is the picture the people of Pakistan are truly, in their own dramatic way, presenting to the world. The worst thing, Brother Sheikh Amin, is that I heard a very well-educated Pakistani gentleman here in this very studio stand up and say to me, when there are 180 million people living in Pakistan, if 50 or 100 die in a day, it's, Dr. Warsi, it's a very small percentage. Why do you make so much noises about it? When I heard that, literally, I was dumbfounded that if it is the thinking of such an educated person from Pakistan coming to the West, staying in this country, and is yet speaking such a language, I said to myself, what would be the view of those in Pakistan who hear from the preaching from the mullahs with blinkers? If they don't belong to your religion, if they do not belong to your sect or even subsect, kill them because they are wajibul qatl, fit to be murdered and slaughtered. A country which every now and then, almost on a routine basis in the news, right, they say the West is picking on us. They say the powers beyond the borders are deliberately maligning the name, good name of Pakistan. They say the Christians, the Jews, the Zionists, the Israelis, the Americans, the British, purposely they are doing that. Are they burning the houses? Are they torching the what you call a citizen's abode, which is called home, where they decide to find shelter, love, peace, and even sleep, I would say.
Well, as a medical doctor, you must have been baffled at the thought of accepting 50 unnecessary deaths as an acceptable percentage. Let's look at what's being said in the West, what people are campaigning about. You can get 20,000 people onto the streets of London to protest about American drones killing 50 or 60 people. It's an awful thing to have the drones flying over your land. It's something I'd like to see stopped. But where are those 20, 30,000 people when hundreds of Pakistanis, thousands of Pakistanis, are being killed by other Pakistanis for religious or ethnic reasons? Where's the protest? I believe in dealing with the biggest problem first. Why should America listen to Pakistanis saying, don't kill our people with drones, when Uncle Sam can light his cigar, smile at them and say, well, you kill more of your own people for no good reason every day of the week, every week of the year. Why should we respect a people who don't respect themselves? Why should anyone respect those people? And this is the downward spiral of self-respect and dignity. Pakistan is losing self-respect and dignity, and it's becoming lower and lower and lower in the eyes of other people. It's like a mad dog fighting. You wait till it's exhausted fighting against everything else, and then you go in and do as you please. Pakistanis need to realise that every Pakistani is a human being, entitled to life, entitled to worship freely as he sees fit, and to be able to think that his neighbours might defend those rights. These are the things we need to keep stressing.
Brother Amin, when there was an earthquake in Pakistan, there were funds being raised in this country. There are many television studios in United Kingdom itself which spent hours and hours of campaign to quite rightfully, justifiably say, come on, put your hands in your pocket, see if you can make donations to find those people devastated by the earthquake in Pakistan or by floods in Pakistan, so that we can build them shelters, give babies and infants and children clothes, warm clothes to wear in winter, give them medical aid. Brother, I might have been half asleep, but I haven't heard on any Pakistani channel, in United Kingdom at least, a campaign to raise funds and ask for donation in kind or in currency, in money form, for the Christians, citizens of Pakistan, who unwarranted in a way have suffered so much. I haven't seen any campaign, anyone speaking that there is this organization is there to raise the fund, please, could you send your money and donation to such an address by any. If this is the life of a normal citizen and people of Pakistan, that they don't care, they have thick skin when the suffering is on the other side of the fence or not theirs. Is this the true picture of true Islam in Pakistan?
It's a terrible picture. How terrible can be best gauged by looking at another country. Australia has been criticised for its treatment of the Aborigines. It's been criticised for its treatment of Eastern European immigrants. It's been criticised for its treatment of Vietnamese refugees. It's been criticised for its policy of stopping boatloads of Chinese Vietnamese trying to escape from poverty, starvation and prejudice. It's known throughout the world as a quite Eurocentric, in an Asian way country, with lots of openly expressed prejudice against foreigners, and particularly foreigners of colour. It brought a tear to my eye that it's such a country that reacts before any of the Muslim countries and says, we will grant asylum and residence to 7,000 Pakistani citizens to save their lives. This isn't just a slap in the face to Pakistan. This is a slap that's so hard you're lying down and they're throwing slippers at you. I'm sorry to use such strong imagery, but it's an incredible insult to a country that hasn't taken on its responsibility. It's a slap in the face to all of my Pakistani friends. And when I saw this happen, as I say, a tear came to my eye, a tear of shame for people I love. If they don't do something, is Pakistan going to survive as an Islamic nation? Is it going to be the sort of nation that anyone will be proud to defend? Or is it going to become some kind of banana republic dictatorship?
Brother, I mean, we hear loud and clear voices being raised. How dare such and such minister, for example, at the moment, the country's own foreign minister, and others, that's a blasphemy. Hang him, kill her, shoot her. Yet, those very people in the city of Lahore may be going to the mosque to say their prayers 5 times a day, perhaps 10 times a day, right? Must have stood and watched the houses of the Christians who are their brothers in his Abrahamic faith, with lip service that they say, that when they come to this country, they say, Christians and Jews, our brothers in Abrahamic faith. When it comes to the city of Lahore, those very Muslims, in their beautiful gold-gilded mosques, right, and places of worship, saying their prayers 5 times a day, praise be to Allah, who is so just, Rahman, Rahim and Kareem, yet stood by seeing their Christian brothers' houses, properties burned down. First it was the Shias, now it is the Christian. Brother, I mean, whom do you think is the next?
We can take a pick on this. We've been warning people for years, I think, it seems like decades, that if the attacks on the Shias and the Ahmadiyya aren't stopped, then who's next on the list? We've seen political opponents assassinated. Now the Christian community is under a concerted attack. Next, well, the people who pray 10 times a day, maybe they'll attack the people who only pray 5 times a day. Maybe the people who own butcher shops will attack the supermarkets. You don't really need a reason as long as you maintain the violence. And we've seen this in Europe. We have in history documented in detail the rise to power and the process of the Third Reich under the Nazis. They started by saying, oh, mentally handicapped people shouldn't be allowed to breed, we'll sterilise them. But then they use up resources, so we might as well let them die in a fume-filled ambulance, and so on, until they were killing Jehovah's Witnesses, gypsies, Muslims, black people, Jews, communists, Democrats for protesting about other people being killed, until virtually everyone who didn't agree with official policy was subject to a death sentence or a potential death sentence. And if the killing in Pakistan isn't stopped, that is where they're progressing to. The deepest level of shame imaginable for a human society.
In the Nazi Germany, about which our Sheikh here was talking about, houses were looted, properties were burnt down, people were made to forcefully leave their shops and businesses and made homeless. Mobs used to lynch the Jewish children by their very look and dress that they used to wear. That led to the Holocaust that engulfed the Germany, a powerful nation, and after that, the leading to the catastrophe, the disaster of the Second World War. We are seeing, in a much smaller way though, a picture, may I say, of the killing fields of Pakistan, where the Shias are being taken from the bus to the fields, the paddy fields, and in those fields they are lined up and shot dead. Are we going to see the killing fields of Pakistan expand and grow larger? Or the leadership, its people, the voice of the majority who believe in tolerance will be able to wipe this notion and bring peace and tranquility to this country, a great country with great potential, with great educated mass of population. Will that happen is a question. We know what happened in Germany. We know what happened in Bosnia when those episodes of the Serbians marching into the villages of the Bosnian Muslims and burning down their houses and properties. I do remember, I think it was in the city of Karachi, a procession was taken out that these Christians, these white Christians, are killing our Muslim brothers. And the Muslim world was speaking out at the United Nations, do something about it. But the voices of the organization of the Arab world, the voices of the organization of the Muslim organizations and the World Forum, right? It seems either they have got dark glasses on that they can't see what is happening with the Shias and the minority communities in Pakistan. It seems that they have got ears, but they have put cotton wool or plugged it, that they can't hear the screams of the infants, of the widows who are killed and tortured to death in Pakistan. But when there is a burning of Astaghfirullah, our great holy book in Florida, oh, thousands and thousands and hundreds and thousands will march, which they should, but here the streets are vacant. There is a complete silence on the streets as far as such episodes are concerned.
The silence is a chilling thing. We can say for a lot of people that they are frightened. They have relatives who will be threatened, maybe even harmed if they speak out. But what is a life without dignity worth? I'm not talking about wealth and luxury items. I'm talking about the dignity that you need to walk up to the point of grovelling before your Creator. How will people who have stayed silent face judgment? How will they face their grandchildren? You know how grandchildren always come up to you and look you in the eye and they say, "You were alive when such and such thing happened, weren't you?" And you go, and they go, "Were you on the good side?" I had a friend, and he'd learned that his father had tried to go to Spain to fight before the Second World War. And he always thought his father had gone to fight against fascism, against Nazism. And he mentioned it to his dad because he'd been boasting to his friends. And his dad went, "Oh no, I didn't go to fight for that lot. I went to fight for Franco." And he said his heart fell through to his stomach. He'd never been so disappointed in anything. He knew his father wasn't that good a person. But when he found out he'd been trying to fight for Franco, on Franco's side, it shattered him. How are people who have stayed silent going to face their grandchildren, let alone their Creator? How are they going to sit there and say, "Well, Granddad, when all these atrocities were happening, did you go out on the streets and protest?" "No, but I stayed home and looked at my breakfast." What shame. You know, the shame just mounts and mounts. I don't want to say people must go out and protest, that they must write to their MPs. But they could at least phone a friend and say, "This is dreadful." I've got friends who could phone me and say, "I'm horrified at what I'm seeing in Pakistan." That phone hasn't rung.
No.
There's silence.
When the drones fly across the frontier provinces of Pakistan, the foreign minister, the prime minister, the president, the people on the street say, "How dare the United States of America fly this plane and, within inverted comma, cause such a collateral damage." The collateral damage that you yourselves are causing to your own brothers and sisters, children of your own country. Do you have no shame? Does your leadership have no shame? The worst thing is when often they say, but do you remember about so many years ago, a big riot took place in Gujarat in India? They will always give that. Well, have I praised the people in Gujarat or Mr. Modi there for the riots in Gujarat? But when you talk and tell them what's happening in Pakistan, saying that we will find a solution, we will work for it, we do condemn it, the first thing they say is, so many years ago, a riot took place in Gujarat, next door neighbor, in India. But you have got Gujarat happening almost now every so infrequently in Pakistan. How many Gujarats have you had so far, right? Where people of no other religion and faiths are intolerable to the eyes, to the ears, to the minds of those very, even the mullahs who preach the gospel of hatred, the gospel of interest, of intolerance, and they will be the one who will stand on the day of judgment and Qiyamah, as our brother Sheikh Amin said here. And when the Prophet asks, peace be upon him, count the lives that was lost because of your preaching, count the lives that could have been saved had you at least opened your mouth and condemned those intolerable acts. Silence in such a time is a crime. Silence is a crime in not only in the eyes of humanity, silence in a crime like this is a crime in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amal bil maruf, nahi anil munkar is one sentence and phrase of Quran that these very mullahs who preach hatred forget when they stand at the pulpit and at the times of prayers. Is silence a crime, brother? I mean,
it's a crime as great as taking a knife and cutting your neighbour's throat, if that's what you're being silent about. It's a crime as great as supplying the matches and the petrol to burn the houses, if that's what you're being silent about. But let's think of the punishments in the afterlife. What is the bitter drink, the zakum? It's the tears and the blood of the unjustly killed that you silently watched disappear from this earth. If you were told to be silent while someone's killed, and your reward for that was that you were forcibly had their boiling blood poured down your throat, would you agree to be silent for the sake of a minute or two's peace? We are risking not just our lives and our well-being in this world. You're risking invalidating all your prayers and fasts and every good action you have ever made simply by not moving these two little muscles. That's all you have to do. Say, this is wrong. I'm not staying silent, as you've noticed, because I am not prepared to suffer in eternity for the wrongdoings of others. I give them warning, and maybe I'll suffer eternal damnation for my own doings, but I'm not going to do it for such acts. Not because somebody might get angry because I say the truth about a wrong action. It's my duty, not just to Islam, but to me, to speak out and say, this is wrong, it must stop.
Silence is not a virtue, it is a crime in such incidents. I remember reading once that our great prophet, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, was walking down a lonely area and he saw a man with his prayer mat saying his salat, his worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whilst he was praying, there were little kids within a very short distance whom he could see. They had taken a little chicken, and little children didn't know what they were doing, but they were in playfully plucking the chick's feathers off its body. And the chicken was screaming, and the children kept laughing and plucking the plug from the little chick's body. This man, an abid, who used to pray for long, long hours, continued praying, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whilst explaining to Moses, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, was so upset by this man's indifference to the act of violence that he said to the earth, "O earth, part, split, and take this worshipper of mine to the seventh depth of the earth and leave him burning there." When those people, those police officers, those security people who must have stood by watching with a smile, a wry smile on their faces, burning of the Christian houses, when those leaders of the, within inverted comma, the so-called the great jihadis of Pakistan, right, who stops buses taking people on pilgrimage or ziyarat to Mashhad or Iran, taking those women and children out, separating them and shooting them down. Those leadership who watched them are exactly the same nature as the abid who prayed, watched the little chick's feathers being pulled, did nothing to save the little chick. If in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the life of a little chicken being tortured is so important that he asked the earth to take his abid down to the seventh sectors of the earth and bury him there, then those mullahs who stand on their pulpits in Pakistan, in those madrasas, and say this such and such people are wajibul qatl. Ask those mullahs, if the story of Moses is true, then what is the true fate these people face at the time of Qiyamah? When we read, Brother Amin, the fate of the people of Lut and other tragedies, when Allah Ta'ala subhanahu wa ta'ala sent his ghazab, his azab on those people, the Prophet said only 30% are on the false path, the rest are good people. But Allah told them, yes, but they are the silent majority, and they will suffer the same fate as the 30% who have caused the sin and shame to me. The leadership that remains silent, the political leadership, the social leadership, and the religious leadership, whether they be in the mosques and the madrasas of Pakistan, or with a nice Western attire in this country, sitting in studios, in newspapers and presses, remaining dumb and uttering only just a few words of lip service. What do you think in the Islamic jurisprudence is the fate of such people?
They suffer the fate the same as people who've done the act. This is clear from Hadith and from Quran, that the person who approves or allows an oppression is an oppressor themselves.
So he's a participant in that act.
Absolutely. If I say to you, oh, you're torturing a chicken, ho, 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 I'm worse than you, because I can see the suffering and I can act. The people you asked a question about, though, leaders, people in suits sitting in studios, I thought that was getting a little near home. Politicians, people of authority, Maulanas, their punishment is in proportion to the power they have.
Beshak, mashallah.
Adhab is proportional. An ear for an ear, an eye for an eye, and mercy for the repentant. So, if I'm a weak person, all I have to say to you to protect our brother chicken is, should you be doing that? I'm saved. But if I'm a big, powerful man with a voice, I have to say, stop that or else. And if you don't stop, I have to stop you. And if I don't do that, I am punished greater than you, because I could do right. I don't know what's in your head, whether you're crazy, whether you've been misinformed, whether you're desperately hungry and trying to remove the feathers so you can eat the poor thing. I have to act as a just human being to the fullness of my capacity. Otherwise, I'm punished for not acting and for not using the capacity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted me to do good in the world. The punishment that's dreadful to start with gets more dreadful the greater the position you have in the world.
But like we are doing a program today here, I hope there are like-minded people in Pakistan, and I am sure there must be many, many, many people of that, of peace, tolerance-minded people who have got the guts, the courage, the conviction to stand up and say, come on, enough is enough. We must wash our slate clean and start a life of peace and penance, and say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we ask for maghfirat, for your rahmat, for your blessings, that we want to forget and start a life where our Christian brothers are greeted with flowers and not burning torches in their hands, where our Shia or any other citizens of that country are, when they see us, they don't go and hide in the bushes for safety and security, where the children, when they see the faces of such people with guns and weapons in their hand, do not start to cry, but hold their arm, expecting love, hug and a kiss, right? Those children will grow to be tolerant children. When you burn your own fields, you're burning your own harvest. When you burn the houses of your own citizen, you're asking the fire to come nearer to your own house. The fire that is burning miles away, the wind can change. The wind can blow a different direction, and suddenly you find your own houses are engulfed in that fire. Brother, let us pray and hope that good sense will prevail.
Inshallah.
And if, please, use this forum to convey your message to those tolerant people, those respectable people, those people with hearts and mind and soul for peace, a message that, come on, this is time to act.
It is time to act. And there are many ways to act, to encourage the people of power to believe that they should act. Why not send someone an email? You don't have to go into any details. Just email your MP, your Prime Minister, in whatever country you are when you see this, and just send a 2-word message: it's wrong. If they get enough of those, they'll know what it's about. You don't have to say which group is wrong, because it's no longer about just one group. You were saying the fire was burning outside. That fire was lit by breaking the family values, the bonds of family in the house. If you can't take trust out of your house into the street, then where is the trust in the household, inside the family? The sickness begins at home, and we start by curing it there, by having family leaders who were prepared to phone a friend and say it's wrong, to send an email, it's wrong. From there we can proceed. The peace process in Northern Ireland, the biggest boost that it got was 2 housewives who decided to walk up the street together saying, we don't want any more violence. Thousands and thousands of people joined them. They became a political force, won awards, and forced people to think about how long are we, Catholics and Protestants, or Royalists and Republicans, going to carry on killing each other and bombing each other's families. In Pakistan, people have to stand up and say, I really don't care what my neighbour's religion is. He's a good fellow, he goes to work. He's a citizen of Pakistan too. That's my message to you. Build a nation, build a good family, a good household. But you must start now, or you may have a house but no roads around it. Or if there are roads, they won't lead to anybody else's house. Not someone you want to talk to anyway.
Samain, brothers and sisters, we've come to the end of this program. The message you've heard from our Shaykh here, Shaykh Amin, is let us pray and hope that it is not just the houses burning in Pakistan, it is the hearts that are burning within those very minds and souls. It is not just the blood of the Shias in Parachinar or other cities of Pakistan flowing into the sea. No, it is the whole country is bleeding. Bleeding, the very bleeding is from the life of intolerance amongst them. Let us hope that they learn from the life of our great Prophet, peace be upon him, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When garbage and rubbish was thrown at him, on him, he tolerated it. When people abused with words, physically and with verbally, he tolerated it. For the peace and for love of Islam, Maulai Kanat, Ali ibn Abi Talib al-Islam, even allowed and tolerated a rope around his neck to be dragged into the streets of Medina. But for the sake that Islam, the mazhab, the deen doesn't split up, he tolerated it. He tolerated for so many years to be deprived of his own rights given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by his great Prophet, peace be upon him himself. He tolerated. the burning of the door of Fatima Zahra Salamullah, and the demise of the little soul Fatima Zahra Salamullah, tolerated it. Tolerance is one of the cardinal principles. Tolerance is one of the great pillars on which Islam prides itself, stands on it. Let us hope that we all, whether Pakistanis or non-Pakistanis, all brothers of Islam will stand out as shining example to the people of other faiths that Muslims have tolerance, that we can live with Muslims as neighbors, as friends, as countrymen, as foreigners. Today, the whole world fears Muslims because of such acts of ours. Let us hope tomorrow a new day, an era will dawn where such fear in the non-Muslim's mind are wiped away. Thank you for watching this program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.